during the last 5 months of anti-government protests. A spokesman for the group has accused the Syrian government of having a brutal disdain for life. Well, let's now go live to Houston in Texas. Joining the hub is Edward Djerejian, a former U.S. ambassador to Syria and to Israel who served in several U.S. Middle East embassies. He's now founding director of the Baker Institute for Public Policy at Rice University. Ambassador, thanks very much indeed for joining us from Houston. What's your view, given this new evidence from Amnesty International, on the status now of the leadership of Bashar al-Assad?
I think the Syrian leadership is increasingly becoming isolated, certainly internationally, and the decision that they've made to oppose the popular protests of their own people on the street through lethal force, and as you mentioned in your commentary, imprisoning people, and 88 people reportedly dying in imprisonment recently, shows that this is a slow, agonizing confrontation between the street and the Syrian regime that could well go on for a very tragically longer period of time. But I think the handwriting is certainly on the wall. This regime, to state what is evident, has lost its legitimacy. No regime can remain long in power after it is brutally killing its own people in the streets and in the citizens.
Now, Ambassador,
and therefore the challenge is...
Ambassador, I was going to say that you served in Damascus during the Assad regime, and you know how it works, particularly the security apparatus. What is your assessment of who is really running this policy, which is one of determination to put down these protests? Is it the president himself, or is it the security structures?
When I was ambassador to Syria from 1988 to 1991, the current president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad's father, was in power. He was a very strong autocratic ruler, a dictator, and his son inherited the same political and security apparatus that his father had put in place. This is a very tight-knit group led by the Alawites, with top-level Sunni businessmen and others in the military. And it is this military, security, political apparatus that still is in control in Syria. So Bashar al-Assad, I think, obviously is the president and responsible ultimately, but I don't think that he is making all these decisions alone. I think he cannot internally be as powerful as his father was in making the ultimate decisions. I think it's more of a very tight-knit, small collective of Alawites and security personnel who are making these decisions.
Ambassador, let me put to you the challenge of now coming from Saudi Arabia, from Russia, which said it wouldn't really intervene in all of this. Do you sense in any way that there is any grounds or any evidence of second thoughts in Damascus about the new pressure emerging from countries which have traditionally been sympathetic?
If there are any second thoughts, I think they're being lost in the continually crackdown that we witness on the street. So if there is any consideration of opening up to political reforms, I think it's only being given secondary consideration in the corridors of power that remain in Damascus. You know, there's something very interesting here. The whole international community, including, and most importantly, the Syrian people, gave President Bashar al-Assad, I think, a pass, a moment to really get ahead of the reform movement. He came into power as a reformist, as a young president, reformist, educated in England, and he has disappointed and deceived everyone on that reform agenda. And the international community, as you well know, until very recently was still hoping that he would somehow not talk the talk, but walk the walk of reforms that he has hinted at, and he has not done so. And therefore, I think the political space for a negotiated settlement between, or an agreement between the regime and the opposition and the street has long gone by. And therefore, I think what we're going to see is continuing popular protests with the risk that it might become more violent.
Ambassador Edward Djerejian, thanks very much indeed for joining us live from Houston in Texas, here on The Hub. Australia's High Court has blocked government plans